Alright, we're going to go ahead and put our hook in the vise. And this is the Daiichi 2546 in a 1/0. You can do this fly in pretty much any size you want. But to start, we're going to do the base, which is a lead-free wire. And I like either 0 point or 0.025 or 0.030. And this one we're going to do a little bit heavier. And that just helps the fly kind of stabilize and then get down in the water rather than just sitting in the top. There's a lot of fluff that you'll see on this fly that can make it sort of float. So this will help it sort of suspend. Then we're going to secure that in just by using our thread. You could put glue down if you have some. And I always take the tag end and just kind of hold it across or parallel to the wire and the hook shank just to give something else for the thread to grab a hold of. So that way the thread doesn't always just bury itself in those lead wraps. And that seems to do a pretty good job. And then you're just going to go ahead and wind all that stuff up, sort of making a little cocoon. You're going to take your thread to the back, right above the barb. And then we're on to our next material, which is the tail. This is just going to be a Zonker strip. This is from Wapsi. It's fluorescent Chartreuse, really popular color. You could do this fly in any color that you desire. It's very simple ingredients. There's millions of variations I'm sure you could create between barred stuff and bling rabbit strips and all that jazz. So this is just the most elementary one, and we're going to go ahead and tie that in, and I do a couple wraps ahead of it, and then I go back down and secure it again. So that kind of double secures it. If you just do it once or twice around the leather strip there and then continue with the fly, it's going to roll a lot fast. And if you go a little bit ahead and secure it and then go back down, usually it'll give it a little bit of a longer lifespan. Then we're going to take this, I just call it flash wrap. It's stuff we make here in the shop. And I like it because it's not super tightly packed, and so it gives you the flash that you want, but it's not necessarily going to give you this huge bulky pattern. I'm just looking for something basically to fill space and wrap it up. Usually it takes about 10 wraps up on a 1/0. So we're probably somewhere around there, and I just take it to right above that wire, the lead-free wire, and then we'll tie it off there. And again, this is something that you could use a little bit of gel super glue if you wanted to make sure it stays connected. These flies don't take long to make, so I honestly don't try to make them as secure as possible just because I'm lazy. Then we go ahead and tie that off, trim it, and then you're going to pull all of those fibers with your left hand down, or your right hand, whichever. And what you're trying to do is make a bed for the leather strip of that rabbit to just lay right down on. If you have all these fibers in there, then that's just more reason or way that it can be ripped up eventually. So you want that to be as tight as possible. So I actually take my right hand and I'll pull, and I'll keep pulling. And then you just put down a couple of wraps. And I come in and cut this strip at an angle. I don't know why. I guess mentally it makes me think that it's going to have a little bit better connection to the hook shank. And then I just cover that whole strip of leather up with a bunch of wraps. You could probably finish the fly here, put eyes on it, and that'd look fine and dandy. That's more like a classic Zonker, but we're going to put a head on it, which is going to be Senyo's laser dub. The dub material is the longer strand fiber. You see a lot of heads being made out of this stuff, and what you do is you actually just pull the feathers, or it's not feather, it's a material, but pull the dubbing apart, and that's going to align all those materials, which helps you when you go to tie it in. And I basically just say make it look like a bow tie, and with your hand. So I see a little bow tie or mustache or something, and then tie that in right at the middle point, and that's going to give us the head that we're looking for. So you leave the one part shooting forward, the other part shooting back. Go ahead, wrap that in, put 3 or 4 wraps down, make sure it's tight. And I always do a little bit more on the top than I do on the bottom, and that's just to help the hook orient correctly. But with this fly, I mean, I was looking, you want something that's like a fluke in some instances that just goes crazy. So I don't know if it really matters all that much for it to be completely perfect, because literally the reason why I like this fly is because it goes crazy. So what we did right there is I just took my left hand, held all those fibers back, and then tied in front of it. Pretty straightforward. So once I kind of comb all that hair out, that's just going to get out any stragglers and then kind of help everything align to the way that it should be. Just pull out anything that is excess, and I'm just going to do a couple more thread wraps around it to hold everything in place, orient it all nice and around the hook. I'm going to go ahead and whip finish, and we're nearly finished. Cut off the excess. You can do a bit of glue or UV resin, whatever you want to protect those thread wraps there that are exposed. But the next thing that we're going to do is add some eyes. And so I always like to get everything aligned right first, because once we put this glue down, it's going to hold it in place. So if you have something that's a little screwy, it's going to show up long term. So we grab the eyes. These are 8.5 millimeter. These are ice eyes. And then we're going to use a gel super glue. This is Loctite, but you can use whichever one you like the most. Just putting a dab. Well, I do a pretty fair amount, because you want it to sort of soak through all those fibers and then bond to the hook shank. Because I like this fly to have a narrow face, so that way it can kind of hit these different currents and spin to the left or spin to the right, and kind of gives you that just erratic action that fish really like. We're going to do the other side again with a pretty generous amount, and take the next eye, put it on, make sure that these are even. If they're not even, one's too far back or one's too far forward, then the fly's going to act not the way you want it to. It'll always spin to the left or to the right. So I've put them on, they're even. I'm going to pull everything back, give it another just check to make sure everything is good before that glue really hardens. And then we're going to go ahead and cut the tail. As you can see, it's really long right now, so I'm going to go in and chop there. It's sort of an angle. I've done other videos to see which way is the best. Kind of determined angle is decent. Check it with my other guys, and then there he is. You can make them a million different colors, and they catch fish.